Hello and welcome to Apple Treats. This is Season 5, Episode 1 of our podcast. This episode will be slightly different from the types of the episodes we did before. Today I'm alone and we will cover some news happened with Apple development world in 2025 so far. This episode probably will be a little bit shorter than usual, but no worry, we will get back to our usual typical episodes soon, and we have quite an interesting topic to discuss next. I won't be telling it now, but we will probably have an interesting guest and we will have some interesting questions to discuss. But today, let's just cover what happened in Apple development, and we will start with latest updates on situation happening in UK. It's interesting to see that Apple's promise of privacy is now being tested by UK government. They supposedly asked Apple to provide a backdoor to encrypted iCloud data, essentially end-to-end encrypted iCloud data covered by advanced data protection. And there were a couple of reports of that request. By the way, that request should be considered secretive, so Apple forbidden from discussing that particular request, and therefore there were no official statements or any kind of information coming from Apple in regards to that request. So today, Apple announced that they are turning off advanced cloud protection for users in UK. So far, users who have their advanced data protection enabled, they still will see that option as enabled, but Apple told that they will be contacted in order to guide them through the process of turning that feature off, essentially, because otherwise it won't be working in UK. Apple did not disclose the reasons for this action. However, we see that that's probably related to that particular request of providing access to all data in iCloud. And there were a couple of reports stating that that request was actually targeted not just UK users, but users around the world. And in order to provide some kind of security for users around the world, Apple just decided not to provide end-to-end encryption for that data in UK. We have to mention that existing data like iCloud Keychain, Photos, iCloud Drive, and some other services which have end-to-end encryption, they are still having that encryption, and they are not covered by this advanced data protection, which is being turned off in UK. And that probably also means that the story is not over. There potentially might be more consequences, and UK authorities might be targeting Apple for something else. And there might be some developments in terms of what will be available in UK in terms of Apple services and devices, and what kind of encryption will be available, what kind of privacy user can expect in UK. But as of now, we only know that Apple terminates the advanced data protection for users in UK. We will see what will happen next, and probably in next update we will cover this with more details. Let's now talk about one more update from today, and that is new beta versions for Apple platforms, including visionOS 2.4, iOS 18.4, and other updates. And this update brings a couple of interesting features. Specifically, Apple Intelligence will now provide support to more languages, and it will be available in more regions. Also, Apple Intelligence will now be available on Apple Vision Pro. That's actually an interesting news, because initially it was omitted and people were like very, I don't know how to say it. So there were a lot of discussions why Apple did that. So probably my point of view was that the hardware probably was too weak to handle Apple Intelligence features and still keep the device cool enough. Maybe they were able to overcome those issues, but As of now, we know that it will be there, and the new beta version already has those features, including writing tools. There will be support for image playground, Genmoji, and so on. Also, Image Playground will get new style for the images. We will also see new Mail redesigned app on iPadOS and macOS. Finally, so people were expecting that redesign a little bit earlier than that. However, we don't see any mentions of the new Siri experiences in this release. Probably that was postponed till the next update of the operating systems. We will also monitor what happens with that. So there are a couple more updates in the operating system themselves. So there are some ambient music controls in Control Center. Vision Pro now gets additional apps on the iOS and on Vision Pro. So on Vision Pro, there is a gallery app which will provide access to some experiences which might be interesting for those who are just trying to understand what Vision Pro can do. And iOS and iPadOS apps will be able to control the guest mode on the Vision Pro, and they will simplify the process of showing your device to somebody else. So those are actually pretty great news. We will see how that actually works, and probably we will discuss that in our next episodes. However, like mentioning that the Apple Intelligence will get new languages and so on, as of now, a beta for visionOS will only work with English. Probably again, different languages will come later for visionOS platform. Another thing which will be added in iOS 18.4 and other platforms is a new section in News Plus subscription service. So now there will be additional food section which will cover recipes. They will have restaurant reviews. There will be some kitchen tips and tricks and so on. And screenshots which Apple provided, they also show like this really nice approach on the recipes where you can follow that, and they have something which, I don't know, mimics the lyrics in the Apple Music. Like you will see this scrolling thing when you can go through those, and you will be probably able to set some timers for yourself. At least screenshots show that. Again, we will see how it works and how that integrates with Apple News. It's not a separate app, and probably separate app might be a little bit more convincing for the users. And we will talk more about one more separate app which Apple created recently. But for now, let's just maybe wrap up with this beta. We will test that beta. We will report on our findings in the next episodes. Another major update Apple did recently, that is iPhone 16e, which is set to replace iPhone SE. Well, this new iPhone is, it has like number prefix, so it's like in 16 line up iPhone. So we have iPhone 16, we have iPhone 16 Pro, and now we have iPhone 16e, which is slightly cheaper than the iPhone 16, and also it has a lot of compromises, I would say. So for example, iPhone 16e lacks ultra wideband, it lacks Thread radio, so one of the radio which is supported by Matter home automation standard. And also a new iPhone 16e lacks MagSafe. And that's actually a little bit concerning. Hopefully they will not be removing MagSafe from other iPhone models. Specifically because the new iPhone 16e has wireless charging, but it doesn't have MagSafe. That's kind of weird, but we'll see why that happens. And one of the reasons which was speculated, but seemingly that's not the case, is that new iPhone 16e has a C1 chip, which is Apple's wireless cellular modem. So Apple now has its own cellular modems, and they are essentially testing that chip with the new iPhone 16e, and probably if those tests will be successful, they will transition to other models as well. One of the things about that particular chip is that it highly energy efficient, as Apple tells us, and that probably will be able to provide new iPhone with much better battery life, and that probably again will be the idea for the next models. However, this chip lacks wavelengths for the 5G, so it probably might have will not be able to compete on like high-speed 5G connections. But again, for regular user, that probably won't be the case. We usually use just regular 5G everywhere, and that probably will be good enough for most of the users. So this is one of the features of the new iPhone, and also it has only one back camera, which probably is again the good camera, but it won't have like those portrait modes using two cameras. It will have the portrait mode built in by just one camera and machine learning models on the iPhone. Again, we'll see how it works. As of now, we have two options for this iPhone 16e in terms of colors. It's black and white. And I've also seen the reports that some case manufacturers will provide cases with MagSafe enabled. So typically, most of the users will still have some case around their iPhone, and therefore there will be some kind of MagSafe connection for the new model. And this particular iPhone also a little bit more expensive than SE. So the original iPhone SE, the previous generation iPhone SE, that started with $429, and the new iPhone 16e starts with $599. So it's like significant step up in price, and some people already speculate that probably next like iPhone 17 lineup may be getting a price hike as well. But we'll see. As of now, we only know the price for the iPhone 16e model, which the pre-orders start today, and we'll see how it goes. And we will also try to report on the general reception of that phone, how people expect that, how people like it, and so on. Another interesting device Apple announced recently is Powerbeats Pro. Headphones, truly wireless headphones with a heartbeat sensor. So this particular device probably might be interested for the athletes. It uses Apple's H2 chip, and it provides significant battery life. It's nicely looking, and as I said, it has the heart rate monitor, which will be working when you start workouts on your any supported application. However, if you have Apple Watch, and typically athletes or amateur athletes or like people who just want to run or to do some workouts, they already have Apple Watch, and in that case, iPhone will get the heart rate from the watch rather than from the Powerbeats Pro 2 headphones. So again, that feature might be interesting for somebody, but I don't think that the game changer for those who use Apple ecosystem for their workouts. Have to mention, this feature will also work on Android. So Android will be able to use a heartbeat monitor on Powerbeats Pro 2, but that capturing the heartbeat will need to be enabled manually. So there will be an app, and you will be able to turn it on and off. And now finally, let's talk about the app which Apple recently released. That app is called Apple Invites, and it specific app for the situation when you want to invite somebody for your birthday, for some party or for some event, and you want to gather their responses, and also you might probably want to give some information how to get there, or maybe you also want to add your playlist which will be playing at the event. That also now an option, and it works of course with Apple Music service. Interestingly, one feature which is sets this particular app apart is ability to add shared Apple Photos album. So that particular feature might be really interesting if the guests will also be using iPhones and they will be taking pictures on that event, and they also can submit their pictures to that album, and therefore all the photos done by everybody on that event will get into a single album, and the people will be able to share them with each other. That's actually a really, really nicely thought feature, and we will be testing that feature soon, and I probably will be able to tell myself how does it work and how Apple Invites work. We need to mention though that the app itself is free, and responding to the invite does not require you to have anything, so you don't even need to have an iPhone or Apple account, so you can respond that on the web. However, in order to send the invite, you need iCloud Plus subscription. So that means that you need at least minimum paid storage level on the iCloud. So anything will go, including if your Apple One subscriptions or just storage plan on the iCloud. As of now, there are no iPadOS or macOS versions of that app. However, you have a web version on your iCloud.com website, so you are able to create your invites in the web or on your iPhone. We'll see. I mean, there were a couple of companies which started teasing Apple in terms of being bad to their business, because there are a lot of other apps providing similar services, but Apple now has its own. We'll see. And as of right now, I can't report how it actually works in terms of gathering the responses, what people say, but I hope in one of our next episodes I will be able to tell the actual response from the people who are on the both sides of that app, who was creating the events and those who were responding to that events, and maybe shared their photos through shared photo album. Moving on, Swift Student Challenge is now on. Eligible students can submit their work until February 23rd, and then winners of Swift Student Challenge probably will get some nice prizes from Apple and also invites to WWDC later this year. However, WWDC was not yet announced, and we probably expect it to be hosted in the beginning of June, probably in Apple Park, with one day maybe Apple will return to their previous schedule, but it's just my hope and maybe to see that the conference will still be 5 days on site rather than 1 or 2 on site days. We'll see. But as of now, if you have anything to submit to Swift Student Challenge, probably now is the time. You probably have just till Monday to submit your work. Apple published some guidelines in terms of the works they're expecting to see. So one of those expectations is that the experience in the app should be within 2 to 3 minutes in order to demonstrate what app does and how it can benefit the user. Let's go to our next update, and those probably will be a little bit smaller in terms of their importance, comparing to UK government trying to access your personal data. These are much more smaller, and they are probably a little bit more uplifting. So, for example, Illinois residents will now be able to use Apple Wallet to store their driver's licenses, which is great. I need to mention though that these electronic driver's licenses will be helpful in airports, with not all of those, but those where TSA has the proper equipment to scan those driver's licenses. However, if you are on the highway, you probably better to have your physical driver's license to show to the police officer. Asahi Linux developer lead resigns and also mentions that that's mostly because of the burnout caused in some way by community and the problems with pushing changes to the upstream Linux. You can read the blog post. There will be links on all of this news in the show notes. However, just keep in mind that this Linux distribution was targeted for Apple Silicon Macs. So you were able to run Linux on your Apple Silicon Macs, and the team was creating drivers for the hardware on those Macs, including GPU, including other things there. And lead developer steps out. The team continues to work. I would say that this is still a problem because he was very vocal in terms of providing the support for Apple Silicon on Linux. And one of the reasons which was mentioned is that they were betting on Rust in terms of the kernel development, and there were like lack of support from just general Linux team in terms of using Rust for that. And there were a couple of issues pushing their changes to the main repo, and that means that current team will have to pursue the same things, but we'll see how it goes. Speaking of support of Apple Silicon, there is another thing which is happening now, and that's really interesting for those who need to run Intel versions of the operating systems on your Apple Silicon Mac. So Parallels are releasing Parallels Desktop 20.2, which provides emulation support for Intel CPUs, and you will be able to run Intel versions of your Windows or Linux on your Apple Silicon Macs. You are only able to run 64-bit versions of those platforms, but those 64-bit versions will be able to run 32-bit versions of the apps. So still a great option. You need to consider the performance though. The reports saying that the performance definitely get a hit when you run non-native platform, specifically running Intel on the Apple Silicon. And there are also there is no support for USB devices, and nested virtualization is also not supported by this update. However, it's still a great news. You probably might be wanting to run some Intel Windows app which was not ported to ARM Windows platforms, and now you will be able to. Hopefully the performance will be good enough for you to be able to run that, and we'll see. So earlier this year, Apple released iOS 18.3 and then 18.3.1 and other platforms as well. One of the key features of those updates were disabling notification summaries for news and entertainment apps, due to the fact that in some cases news app notifications were summarized incorrectly, and like they were sometimes funny, sometimes not funny, but as of now Apple decided to turn off news and entertainment app notification summarizations and give you an option to turn off notification summaries for other apps as well. Hopefully Apple will be able to deal with that in the next releases. They will be able to tune those summaries in a way to make sure that even news articles will be properly summarized. But as of now, they just turned them off and provided you an option to turn off other summaries. So you can do that now. And also the 0.1 update fixes a very problematic issue, security issue, which you probably want to install this update, because that issue was used in the wild, and you want your system to be safe, right? Apple also issued the updates to the previous, like iOS 17 lineup and macOS 14 and 13 updates, fixing those issues as well. So if you are running previous releases, you probably want to install those. Moving on. Apple published adoption statistics for the iOS 18 and iPadOS 18. 76% of iPhones, modern iPhones, are running iOS 18, and 68% of all compatible devices, compatible iPhones, are running iOS 18. As regards to the iPadOS 18, 63% of modern iPads and 53% of all compatible iPads are running iPadOS 18. These numbers are actually pretty on par with the previous year. So like Apple Intelligence probably not driving users faster to update. Probably again, maybe because of the device compatibility, like the Apple Intelligence only available on Apple Silicon iPads and on the like iPhone 15 Pro and up iPhones. So we'll see. Maybe the updates will be better if Apple Intelligence also has some must-have features as of now, and maybe users still don't sure that they actually need that. Who knows? Now let's talk a little bit more about the situation in Europe and specifically the ability to run alternative marketplaces. So now we have another alternative iOS marketplace in Europe, Aptoide, which for now is focused on the games, small games, and they also provide you an opportunity to download different version of the game. Like for example, if you are running really old version of iOS or iPadOS, you can install a really old version of the game which supports that particular platform. And if you're running a newer version of the iOS, then you can install later version of that game, which is probably good. As of now, at least from what I've seen, the all apps and games there are free, but probably they will also have some monetization as well. And speaking about these alternative marketplaces, let's talk about the, I would say, well, that particular situation caused a lot of news articles to be published. So one of those alternative marketplaces allowed adult content app to be published, and that caused some journalists to say that Apple approved that particular game. So that also caused Apple to publish a specific statement to say that they never approved those games, and the games and apps published in European Union do not require Apple approval, and therefore, well, App Store will never have such a game and or such an app. This particular marketplace, App Store, received funding from Epic Games recently, and those funds were to cover a core technology fee, which marketplace should pay Apple for downloads, which starts with some crazy amount, but well, nevertheless, and also to cover some other expenses by App Store. Now, Epic Games say that they will also never approve such a game on their alternative marketplace, but well, it's still interesting to see how that mental gymnastics happening at Epic Games. A couple of updates for those who are distributing apps across the world. There are a couple of legal requirements, new legal requirements in Vietnam and South Korea. So if you are publishing games in Vietnam, you now have to have a license provided by the government, and you need to pass that information through the App Store Connect. And well, there is a process to acquire that license, but again, you need to be aware of all the legal repercussions of that. So Apple will get that from you through the App Store, otherwise you won't be able to publish games in Vietnam storefront. In South Korea, if your app has subscriptions and those subscriptions have grace period or some offers where the price is lower in the beginning and then it increases, you will need to get the consent from the user. So Apple said they will target users to get that consent through push notifications, through in-app App Store like sheets appearing when user launches the app, and through emails. But in case if the user did not provide that consent, your subscription will users' subscriptions will be terminated. And trader status is now a mandatory thing in European Union. So there is a Digital Services Act, which requires developers who have trader status, which essentially means that you get money from apps. Well, like, it's not that clear, but at least that way I understand that particular trader status. So if you distribute paid apps, or you have subscriptions, or you have any kind of monetization in those apps, you need to identify as trader. And if you identify as trader, you also need to put your phone and mailing address, so users will be able to contact you directly, which is probably okay for big studios or big companies, but well, indie developers distributing their apps in the European Union will now need to disclose their phone number and the address, and that's probably not a very good thing for small individual developers. But if you did not set trader status, or did not provide all the information there, your apps will not be, like, including free apps, will not be available in European Union on App Store storefronts. So you need to check that and provide the information in App Store Connect. Also, there will be a couple of price and tax updates in several regions in the App Store, and those will roll out in multiple waves. So, like, something will happen in February 6th, something will start on February 24, and on April 1st, there will be additional thing happening in Japan. So you can read those in the article, but if you are concerned about those regions, that will typically mean that your prices might change in those regions. And if you set the different region as the base for your prices, so the prices will be updated there, or not if you are targeting those regions. But nevertheless, you probably might need to check what will be your price in those regions and adjust that accordingly. There are a couple more things happening with payments and App Store, and with Apple Pay, by the way, too. So starting on January 24, if you try to validate App Store receipt on the device, you need to use SHA-256 algorithm. So that's just the algorithm change, and if you are doing those checks on your device manually or on your server, you just need to be aware of those algorithms, and you need to make sure that you're validating receipts properly. Otherwise, your code might fail, and the user will see that they did not subscribe to something, or like they didn't have some access, or so on. And starting on February 4, if you have Apple Pay on web implementation, you need to use one of 6 approved cryptography algorithms. So again, that all posted on the Apple's developer portal with all the details on the algorithms and so on. Just keep in mind that you will need to use the approved algorithms there. Some updates on Apple push notification service. So now, well, like, you probably remember that previously you had a certificate for each environment and each application, and you uploaded that to in developer portal to the app ID of your app. Then Apple introduced keys to use push notification service, and keys provided broad access, so you will be able to use a key to send notifications through every app. And if you have a big company and you have multiple apps, you sometimes want to limit some teams to use to send notifications to just one app, and the other team will send notifications to the other app, and so on. So due to that reason, most companies, some companies, we don't have stats on like most companies, so they still used certificates in order to provide that level of security between separate teams within one company. So now you have topic-specific keys and team scoped keys. So the team scoped keys are the keys which provide you access to all of the apps, but you can limit that to production or development environments. And topic-specific keys will provide access to separate apps, and you can limit those as needed. So again, you now have more granular control of the push notification service in your team. So that's actually good news, and probably now we will be able to just move to the keys-based authentication for the Apple push notification service. So this update, I would like to talk a little bit more. While it won't be relevant to many of us, but it's really relevant to those who have big in-app purchase catalogs. So Apple introduces Advanced Commerce API, essentially allowing you to maintain the catalog of your in-app purchases and subscriptions and subscription types on your backend rather than entering them manually or through script in App Store Connect. So instead of keeping all the individual like every separate in-app purchase, every separate subscription, and let's imagine you have an app where you can subscribe to specific content creator, like, I don't know, Instagram, you can subscribe to some exclusive content from a specific person. That will be a separate subscription. You need to create those in App Store Connect. That's pretty terrible thing to do. And also, if you have a lot of electronic books and you want to keep them aligned on the App Store Connect, again, that's a huge effort to maintain that catalog. So now you can keep your catalog on your backend, and Apple will communicate through that Advanced Commerce API with your catalog. There are requirements to get that API to work, so you need to request that access, and you will need to implement something on your backend for that communication to work. So the eligibility criteria for that is that exceptionally large catalogs of one-time purchases, well, consider that films, books, TV episodes, whatever, or subscription content. Again, if your subscription is specific and it has some options like specific to one content creator or something like that, and you provide access to the subscriptions which optional add-on content like, I don't know, additional single purchase, like some offerings and so on. So again, if that's your case, you probably want to use Advanced Commerce API. And that API is now available in the beta of the new platforms and the Xcode. So you will now be able to use that in your development cycle. So probably some companies might start migrating to Advanced Commerce API now. Some updates from the Swift team. Swift build is now open source. So before that, there was a situation when a Swift package manager had its own build system and Xcode had separate one. So now the Xcode version of Swift build is being open source, and we expect that the whole thing will be unified. So we will have one build system for all Swift projects. So that's really good thing, but we expect that Swift Package Manager will migrate to that build system, and the other platforms will also be using new unified build system in Swift. Also, team announced gRPC Swift 2 library, which now supports modern Swift concurrency. It has better and more straightforward APIs. It's more flexible. It has support for all the kind of protocols and so on. And so if you were using gRPC in your apps and you were using the previous version, consider migrating to a second one. But again, have a lot of testing in order to do that, because while the library is announced, there might be still some issues, and Swift team also asks to create issues in GitHub or like submit your work if you have something to add to that library. Visual Studio Code Swift extension is now published on the Visual Studio Marketplace, so you will be able to get it through the typical source for the extensions. Again, good thing. And it also migrated the code for Visual Studio Code Swift extension to Swift organization on GitHub. So again, all Swift projects are now part of the Swift organization. So it's not part of Apple Xcode, Apple GitHub set of repositories. It's like separate Swift-lang organization which hosts all the Swift-related projects. And maybe we should talk now about one thing which is useful for those of us who are using separate account to make app or content purchases. So recently Apple announced a feature which allow you to migrate digital purchases from one Apple account to another Apple account. The idea behind that is you probably before family sharing was introduced, you had one account which was set in App Store and another account was set as your, iCloud account or Apple ID on your device, and you were trying to keep that running. And in some cases that had some issues, but some people were trying to run that because of history reasons and were not able to migrate to one account. So what you can do now, you can migrate the purchases from one account to another one, and that requires a couple of things to be true. And one of those, the regions should be the same. You cannot move purchases from one region to another using this mechanism, and generally speaking, that's still a big problem for migration of the content purchased in different regions. Also, there are some other things you need to make sure are correct. Apple published a specific support document with all the requirements you have to check before doing this migration. And just for those who did the migration and something went wrong, there is a way to undo that migration, which is also a good thing because, in some cases, everything might turn out to be not the way you want it to be. So again, you now can do that. The process can be initiated in your settings, and you will be able to complete that migration within reasonable time. There is some mentions that in some cases you need to wait for some time before you will be able to migrate your purchases, because it might be cleared for up to a month. So beware of those things. And last topic I wanted to tell you now, and that is a good news for those who are relying on App Center for build distribution. So if you have enterprise account, or you used some distribution over App Center for the builds for your testers using ad hoc certificates or something like that, you might know that App Center is being retired on March 31st. And that means that you need something to move to. So usually it was recommended to migrate to TestFlight for testing and use that service as your main build distribution service. But in some cases that's not an option, and people were asking for other versions. So Emerge Tools announcing their build distribution service, which has a free tier, and that free tier is actually pretty great, I would say. So 5,000 builds per month will be available to you for free. You have unlimited users. You can do SSO, single sign-on integrations. There are support for multiple platforms. There are SDKs to communicate with that build distribution service. So there are a lot of things you can do with this thing, and I think personally, if you're relying on App Center, this is very nice alternative. So you probably can use it in your lifecycle. Again, migration might take time. It might require some actions to do, and till end of March, you still have time. And if you were looking for the tool to use, and you were hesitant to use TestFlight for one reason or another, consider checking that and start migration process now. Check how it works. Maybe you will be able to complete the migration seamlessly, and there will be no interruptions in your development life cycles. So that is actually it for this episode. I mean, it's a little bit short, and it's just me talking about a couple of updates. We will get back to you with more typical episode soon. We are getting ready to air that soon, and if you're still listening or still watching, please spend a little bit of your time on writing a review on your podcast app or on the video app you're using to watch us. Give us a rating, put your comments, I don't know, send us an email if you want to hear or see something in our podcast. And with that, thank you very much. See you or hear you next time.